This is Khatt Chronicles, design stories from the Arab world and the Swana region. My name is Huda Smitshuijzen AbiFarès, and I have with me today Aria Kasaei from Studio Kargah. Studio Kargah is a graphic design studio founded in 2001 in a basement in downtown Teheran by Aria Kasaei and Peyman Pourhossein. Studio Kargah has grown into a medium-sized independent studio since, and a hub for artists, researchers, art galleries, museums, archives, cultural institutions, and publishers. It operates as a multifunctional creative space where exploration and production go hand in hand, and where they engage in activities that include ideation, archiving, research, curating exhibitions, and book publishing. Studio Kargah goes beyond commissioned design projects. They undertake self-initiated projects where they collect, classify, and archive Iran's graphic design history. The studio's co-founder, Aria Kasaei, who's with me today, is an active contributor to the Dabiri Collective, Tandi's biweekly magazine, among others. He has curated graphic design exhibitions such as Azad Art Gallery's Graphic Design Project in Teheran in 2009, and posters from Iran in Copenhagen in 2011, and they have participated in several international exhibitions. So welcome, Aria. It's great to have you on this podcast.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Huda, for having me on behalf of the studio here. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this podcast.
It's finally wonderful to meet you in person. I think maybe we can start by you telling us how you became a designer and how you started this studio and, the highlights of your career so far.
Yes, we started studio 24 years ago. Next year would be our 25th anniversary. We had no idea that we're going to be like this. We started a very small studio in the basement of in the downtown of Tehran, and it was me and Peyman. Then little by little we asked, and I was 18 years old when we founded the studio. At first it was not a studio, it was just like a place for us to do our university exercises and something like this. But we put the name of Studio Kargah. Kargah in Farsi means studio, so it was like studio. The reason was that because the space that we had was really like a workshop or an atelier. We used to do the drawing exercises, working on some sculptures, everything. It was like an underground experimental space for us and for our classmates. Little by little, we had some design projects like ordinary orders or something like this. After like 4 or 5 years, we started to add some colleagues to us. At that time, I was invited by Reza Bedini to teach history of graphic design in a school in Tehran called Vije. So from the second year, I started to invite some of the students to Studio Kargah to join us for working on some projects. And so the family grew up, and now we are like, I think now we are like 16. We have 16 colleagues over there from different generations. Our newest colleagues in the studio are like 19, 20 years old. And me and Peyman, we are like 45, 44 years old. So we are trying to add this new blood to the studio every year with the students. So we changed the space because we couldn't stay there with this group of people. We needed a larger space for the studio. But the point is that the ambience of the studio, we try to keep it as an experimental space more than an office or something like this. So now if I want to talk about the studio, at first it's like our home, because actually I'm in Paris right now. But we are, before that, when I was working in Tehran in the studio, which is still like that, it was our home. We were living in there. I have never seen even my family or my partners in life as much as I lived with my colleagues in the studio. So it was like still like a family. We are like sisters and brothers, and it's this. So yeah, so it's at first it's a home. Yeah.
Did you both study in the same BJ art school?
Me and Peyman, we were classmates in high school. So we know each other since we were 14 years old. Then we went, it was an accident, but we went to the same university when I started to study graphic design in Sure, which is a university. And from the first semester, we founded a studio, which I told you the story. It wasn't a studio. It was somewhere to hang out more than a studio. Yeah. So we know each other now for like 30 years, me and Peyman.
You know, I have like a few questions for you, maybe personally, about, you said you were teaching the history of graphic design. And would you say that kind of like helped you maybe learn more about history of graphic design in Iran? And did that also affect the way you design or the way you initiated certain projects?
Yes, actually it helped a lot. There were some parallel lines in the studio. At first we started, something totally organically. We started to collect something from something like catalogs and posters and these sort of things from before the revolution in Iran, from 1950s, 60s.
Okay.
At the same time, we found so many friends that they were doing these archival things too. Maybe we can talk about some people, totally private, they are not, governmental organizations or institutions. There were some friends who were collecting too, from Reza Abedini to Ali Bakhtiyari and many, many other friends. They had their archives. Why I started to teach history of graphic design, that was because maybe I was curious about what has happened in Iran when the revolution happened. So it was coming from kind of insecurity to see that, okay, this has happened to my parents, the previous graphic designers. So let's see what way we can find with this type of social changes in Iran and try to resist for us. It was like a form of resistance. Knowing about the history is a kind of form of resistance.
Yeah.
So we had this archive and I was teaching history of graphic design. We found some new friends who had great, beautiful archives of history of visual arts in Iran. So all these things organically came together. It gives us kind of a characteristic that's kind of linked to the history, and it gives another sense to the studio, which is something, let's call it diversity.
Yeah.
So this difference between me and Peyman that you were talking about is between us and other colleagues in the studio too. So when you see the works of the studio, I'm not saying that if they are good works or bad works, but you can feel the diversity in them, because we want every new colleague to bring its spirit to the studio, to add something to the studio, from the AI generation to us.
Yeah.
So it's like teaching and learning at the same time and giving the new blood to the studio to see, to kind of adapt ourselves with the changes in the society and the technology and everything like this. So the history for us was even this diversity too. It's the importance of diversity.
I mean, I know that also in your studio, you did something which is probably very unusual for the graphic design studios in general, is commissioning designers to make for the studio, but also for some project, custom-made typefaces. And you've worked with, maybe you can mention who you worked with, because I don't want to mention them, but maybe it would be interesting also to talk about this collaboration. And, as art director, how was your interaction with the type designers? Or do you you don't have full-time type designers on industry?
No, we don't have full-time type designers, but we still need more and more arms and more collaborators, because we really believe in teamwork, and we really prefer to do something as a teamwork instead of doing something individually. And we need these different points of view in different types of works, from illustration to motion graphics to type design, all of them. So for some projects, we invite some of our colleagues from different studios to join us, or sometimes we do these collaborations with them when we ask them, okay, we are working on this new project, but we prefer to work with you. Because all of us together, the result would be more fruitful. So, and we can reach it. It's not about, earning money, finalizing a project. It's about doing something in a better way, doing something that we don't know it by ourselves, but we can collaborate with others who are professionals in that field, such as type design. We did some type designs in the studio totally by ourselves, but mostly we are collaborating with others. For example, we are using a type design, a font for the studio, even the visual identity of the studio, which is a collaboration between us and Damun Khanjanzadeh as a collaborator. So, and the time that we were working on it, Reza Abedini, he was in our studio and helping us in designing some details. So it was like, for us, it is also something like playing. And the playing is about sharing something with each other. And so for us, it was okay, like inviting different people with different professions. And we will collaborate with illustrators, animators, motion graphic designers, type designers from outside the studio too. And I think if we want to make something, then we need to do it as a more and more collaborative project and teamwork.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's the field has become so complex that it also forces you, but it's a good thing as well. And you have to be kind of, you have an advantage that you started like that. A lot of people have to adapt, but you already started your studio with that premise of open space, collaboration, experimental, working with colleagues. I'm very curious about, I think Reza Abedini worked a long time ago on a book on the history of design, Iranian graphic design, but it was very contemporary graphic design. So it's not, it's kind of represents at the time, like in the 2000s, beginning 2000s, I think, or a little bit later. And you've been collecting all these things, and I know you have some publications that are very hard to get outside of Iran, because I guess next time I meet you, I'm going to ask for some copies.
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, I think, now that you're, you told me earlier, and maybe you can explain it to the listeners, that you decided that, to expand your studio and open a kind of branch, if I want to call it a branch, or another, a parallel studio in Paris. So extending the family more and more internationally. Yeah. Would you consider also, making these publications in a language that is more like international language for other audiences? Because I think people are, they're aware of Iranian graphic design, but then more like the early, the contemporary. Because contemporary is everywhere. We see it on Instagram and on social media. So everybody is aware of what's happening in contemporary graphic design, but the history is not there.
Yes, definitely. One of the reasons that we started to open I'm not okay with that word of French, but I'm not finding another word for it. But the point that we are opening a new atelier for the Studio Kargah in Paris is that we published I think 13 or 14 books, that most of them are about different projects in graphic design in Iran, mostly before the revolution of 1979. Mm-hmm. The point about Iran and working in Iran is because of the sanctions, because of the isolation of Iran, because of these political things. So we are trying to do whatever we used to do in Iran internationally. And one of the most important goals right now is publishing those books, and in trying to organize and curate exhibitions of about history of graphic design, and not also graphic design of Iran, but because we've been always so interested in the graphic design of the whole region.
Yeah.
And there are so many common roots and common aspects in the heritage of visual culture in Iran and the whole region. which we used to know that by the geopolitical term of Middle East, which we are not agree with that.
No.
This
To call
title.
it Southwest Asia, so to kind of be geographically neutral.
This is something for us that we really want to do, that to collaborate with studios, with institutions all around the region and try to find and, try to make a bridge between them, a cultural bridge, something much more than political borders.
Yeah.
To try to, to collaborate, to make this visual language of the region, because we have so many things in common. The most important one right now is our writing systems, which we call it Perso-Arabic typography or Perso-Arabic writing system. That's the point. So we can do it together, all of us together. Let's just forget about the political problems between the governments or these sort of things that we don't believe in that.
Yeah.
So, yes, for your first question, we are going to publish those books about history of graphic design. And we are really interested to do these collaborations with the studios and cultural institutions all around the region, from Beirut to Dubai to Jeddah to, I don't know, everywhere in Cairo. Yeah.
To Amsterdam.
Amsterdam, yes. Let's, it's very, exactly. It's very important. And one other thing that I can talk a little bit about it is that for 5 years, we were a group of designers and researchers. We are trying to publish this book, a huge book of, let's say, history of graphic design in Iran. It's kind of, let's say, finished. It's in the translation process with the supervisory of Majid Abbasi. Right now, he lives in Toronto. Yeah. And the rest of the group, I'm in Paris, and Ali Bakhtiari is in Tehran, but the book is kind of finished. So it's about 150 years of history of graphic design from Qajar period till now. Yeah. So that book is like a combination of so many small projects that we did together and some knowledge from other people.
Okay.
We've been a group of 7 people and we worked for 5 years to prepare this book.
Can you introduce to the audience who Ali Bakhtiari is? I think everybody as a graphic designer in the region knows Reza Abdini and Majid Abbasi, but maybe not Ali Bakhtiari.
Yeah. Ali Bakhtiari is, let's say, he's a curator, archivist, art historian, and he's got a big collection and archive of visual arts, also from the artworks. But the most important part of his collection is about, I don't know, what do we call it? Ephemera or something like this?
Yeah, ephemera. Yeah.
Like the catalogs, books, posters, and we've been working together for years. We gave parts of our collection to different museums for show, and sometimes we donate them. Like the donation we had to the Tehran Museum of Graphic Design, like years ago, we gave part of our collection to them. And also we did it so many times. For example, there was an exhibition in Musée d'Art Moderne de la Ville de Paris.
Yeah.
And also, for example, Museum of Decorative Arts or some other museum, we gave some parts of our collection and archive to them for some exhibitions, and Tate Modern too for some of our political posters, So we try to activate these private archives and private collections, which is super important. And Ali Bakhtiari, he was our collaborator for years, more than 10 years now. We did so many projects together. He's not a graphic designer. But he's been helping everyone else who's trying in this way. Give his archive, trying to find some investors or different types. And years ago, we curated an exhibition in Tehran Museum of Contemporary Arts called Karname. This exhibition was the biggest exhibition that we did together, which was about the visual culture of Iranian children.
Okay.
For 50, 60 years. So it was a big exhibition in T-Mocha, Tehran Mocha, and it was about the books, the illustrations, the animations, everything like that. Yeah, we published that book, and that book is bilingual, so I can give you a copy.
Great. I mean, speaking of exhibitions, on your list of activities that you do as a designer, you also curate exhibitions. Do you want to share with us a few ones that you've done that you feel strongly about?
Yes, this is it is an important part of our projects, curating exhibition based. Most of them are, there are different types. Some of them are about contemporary works of graphic design. Some of them are about the history of graphic design. About the exhibition that we had in Shomon, we were invited for the 20th anniversary of Studio Kargah to Shomon Festival of Graphic Design. So we did the exhibition design and we showed many of our works, but it was something special happened there that maybe you can find it on our website. Yeah. For years that we've been working on different projects, we try to categorize projects for ourselves, but we were not talking to our clients about that. It was like, okay, there are some subjects which are important for us. For example, city, urban identity. It was really important for us all these years. The other thing was storytelling in the tradition of storytelling in the region, And for example, the other one was based on how we can modernize the heritage or the visual culture of Iran and the region into a modern graphic design. So it was, for us, it was something that we have to try to find new way of modernizing it. Or, for example, the other project was about Perso-Arabic typo. So we had all these categories that they are always going parallelly. Yeah. Each project that comes to studio, we try to see, okay, we can adapt it with which of these different categories. So if a project needs storytelling, we put it in storytelling. If it's about, if we can adapt it to urban identity of Tehran or the city, then we put it in that category. So years and years after projects and projects, like thousands of projects, then we have body of works about urban identity, about, for example, how we can document Tehran as a city that we live in a graphic design language of its own time, or how we can solve the problems of this project, or how we can suggest something by storytelling, or how we can work on it with our love to the visual culture of Iran and the region. So we put each project to one of these different parallel lines. When we had this exhibition, it was like a retrospective exhibition in Shomon. We had 3 spaces, so we dedicated each space to one of these ideas. One of them was like an old Iranian house with patterns and motifs and ornaments, which was about our visual culture. We had a video, which I would send you the file, which was about all the projects that was kind of inspired by the city of Tehran. Or the other one was like a school, and we designed it like a school, all Iranian school, or all schools in the region, that we were showing our storytelling projects. Sometimes Peyman, because he's so strong in storytelling, he writes a poem for a project. He writes a story, so it's like a game. It's like playing, you try to experiment something new, or it was like this. So we have all these lines going parallelly about our personal obsessions, like city, like storytelling. Yeah. So that's why you like what you do, you're working on something that you really love it. And then graphic design is like a tool that you can express yourself. It's not only about orders. Yeah. It can be an artistic, individual way of expression, graphic design. Yeah. So we try to develop our ideas by the language of graphic design.
Yeah. So maybe you can talk about, the design gallery and the design exhibition scene in Tehran. How is that? Is it just your work, or is it just an impression that I have that it happens more often, that you had I can't remember now the names, Parking Gallery?
Parking Gallery, it was founded by Aria Kasaei, our friend and our colleague years ago. maybe at the same time that we founded Studio Kargah. The design scene, if I want to talk about it, concise, let's say that the experiences that we had before the revolution from 1960s and 70s, everything started, everything in the modern graphic design in Iran started at that time. Before that, yes, we had our 1,000 years of, for example, bookmaking or illustration, but this new type of graphic design, the modern side, it started in 1960s and 70s. And before revolution, we had this experience of creating graphic design for cultural institutions by a number of Iranian graphic designer masters. When the revolution happened, everything stopped for 10 years, 15 years. It was really difficult. We had this war between Iran and Iraq just after the revolution. So everything was just upside down. Most of the institutions were closed for 10 years, 15 years. So, what had happened was that people themselves, not the government, not the regime, they started to recreate them again. And we still had that experiences from before the revolution. So we had to make it to publish it as much as we could. So we passed this experience. We have to continue it. We don't have to repeat it again. And by the attempts, really, really deep attempts of the Iranian masters of graphic design, from Murtaza Momayyez generation to, for example, Reza Abedini or Saed Meshki or Majid Abbasi's generation, they put their hands together and try to do something about it. So it was, they were successful to kind of keep it and give it to our hands. So when we started to work for example, the cultural institutions, for the galleries, let's say, much more than governmental, So they were like galleries, and the galleries were our friends. They are our friends. We are at the same age, All of us together, we tried to create our own private spaces, like private studios, like galleries, like fashion designers, like concept stores, like publishers. We are a group of people 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, that we try to create our own society, but not collaborating that much with the government, for example. And it's difficult because Iranian society is a short time society. And the social changes in Iran is so fast. So every time that we try to make something, we have so many difficulties, so many changes, but we still need to fight, because creating beauty is a form of resistance. So we are all trying to continue it. And the point is that sometimes we are successful, sometimes we get disappointed, but we need to keep on fighting in the way that we know it. And so graphic design in the private cultural institutions, yes, right now it's a need from the last 20 years. Whenever someone wants to create a space, one of the first things that they go to is a graphic designer. We try to collaborate with them from the first step, not as the last step. So we try to make a characteristic for these institutions all together. And because sometimes we have this 25 years of experiences working in this field, they come to us at first, okay, we want to have a gallery. What can we do? And we try to create them to us and to other studios too, but we are trying to help each other about the cultural foundations too, the private ones. So right now, graphic design for these events, for these spaces, is one of their first needs, which is very
People
important.
are more aware of it also, right?
Yeah, that's why what you are doing, Huda, is so important too, because you are trying, it's very important for our countries with this short time, societies, to create private institutions and try to keep it alive and continue working. We don't have that much funds we don't have funds, for example, in Iran for this type of projects. But the point is that we can help each other, you know.
Yes.
A gallerist gives us their space. We go and talk to an investor to collaborate with us for publishing a book. We go and talk to archive and the collectors to give us some parts of that archive that we need. So what we tried to do was making a hub for different types of the people. So your hands are full of tools that you can do it. Yeah. Invite people to collaborate, to do a collaboration, and forget about, for us in Iran, I don't know, maybe in Beirut it's different, or it seems that, for example, in Emirates it's different, but we try to forget about the money from the government. Then we have to solve our problems with our own hands. Okay, let's do it. Let's do whatever we can do. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's also interesting for me, from looking from the outside again, to see also that there's a growing development of the field of type design in Iran. What do you think about it, about these developments?
Yeah, right now, the first thing that it really comes to my mind is Damu Khanjanzadeh. The point is that he really, really tried to create this movement of type design in Iran, in the contemporary graphic design of Iran. Before that, by the generation of, for example, the previous generation, they were working on typography, but not the type design.
Yeah.
They were trying to make type and the writing system something like the language that you speak with, something like a living creature that needs to be updated every day. Okay. So the point is that at that time they were working on typography, but when the Damun came and by the help of some others, he tried to create a teamwork and collaborative even courses in this Vige school of design. So he had classes and he educated, if it's nice, that's a good word for it, you know. He really tried to educate so many young students, and now it's something that we can really talk about it. The problem again is that type is something is a difficult process. You really need investment. You really need very rich clients. So we have to solve this problem. You know, for example, for a graphic designer, maybe in other countries of the region, for them, it's possible to sell their typefaces or fonts online. But for Iranian young designers, it's totally impossible because of the sanctions. Yeah. So what we need really right now is that try to find a way to make this bridge between Iranian type designers and the international institutions to put their fonts and sell their fonts. So, and try to find a way to just do the money transaction to Iran so they can develop and continue. And what is going to be more interesting is that collaborating with designers, for example, with Latin writing system, or even the type designers of the region, for example, I really like to see the collaborations between, for example, the Iranian designers and Pascal, or with Christian and all these type designers of, for example, the Lebanon design scene, or the ones in other continents too. So the point is that we have so many difficulties in common with the region, but I think this is very important to do the collaborations. Yeah, I agree. And I think it's also like really,
the few type designers that I know, Iranian type designers that work internationally, just simply have to live abroad, like Sahara of Sharjah, there's so many of them, very good designers, and they are all living outside because living in Iran. It's just that the logistics of working, I think. But the talent is there. Like, we published a book. For example, one designer I really like, Bakhtiyari Fard, Reza Bakhtiyari Fard. He's very talented designer. His beautiful work, so there's all this, and you can, what I like is and what I'd like also about your exhibition in Chamor is to kind of, say there's a lot of things in common, but each region within this very big region has also very nice differences that we can also highlight on a separate podcast. But I'm curious about how you feel about somebody reviving like the older scripts, the pre-Arabic Persian scripts, like Pahlavi and Avestan. And
no, they are not longer used, but the point is that there are some aspects in them which can be very useful as a suggestive subject, because, for example, the whole writing system of this Perso-Arabic thing is coming from Sasani period and the big immigration before Islam. So there are some roots that they are really interesting in form, and also it has a potential and capacity. So by watching them, try to find, okay, this can be so modern. If you combine it with something else, this can be very useful,
Yeah.
And this can be, it can gives more richness to this.
But how is it seen as a script? Because I guess it's kind of like, how is it seen as a script in Iran today? Like, as a script, does it represent, it represents, other than cultural heritage, does it represent a kind of like resistance to the existing narrative?
No.
Not really.
No, not like that. When we were working with my other friends like Farhad Fuzuni or Iman Rad or Reza Bedini, when we had this collective called Dabire, the point was we were trying to find the same roots. But as I said, because of so many social changes in Iran, now most of us, we are not even living in Iran. So it's very difficult, but we lost this connection. But at that time we found that, okay, we can find something in them that by these similarities, we can do something modern and just adding small details to these new typefaces or fonts, that these small details, they really have deep roots. So it works when we add it to it. But now, as a form of resistance or these sort of things, no, it's no longer used by people. But for designers, I'm pretty sure that if they know the history of this evolution of fonts and typefaces from Dabire to this new writing system and script, they would find so many interesting things in them.
Okay, I could talk with you forever. It's really a pleasure. It's really very nice. I want to end with one question. We in this third season of the Khatt Chronicles, we wanted to focus on women designers. You're not a woman designer. I'm not only interviewing women designers, but I'm curious about the women designers in your studio, and how is that? Because like for example in Beirut, and the classroom is often 100% women students, and then they go out and they start to work as designers. So the field is kind of changing demographically, and also they've been kind of excluded historically from design history books and stuff like that. So even when there was older women designers, they were kind of a minority, or at least perceived as minority. How is that changing in the time being in Iran? And how do you have any bias in your own studio in that way? Question.
No, it's really important because we've been dealing with it for years now. And at first, the scene of graphic design is changing in Iran too. It started like 15 years ago till now. Now the number of the Iranian women of graphic design is growing a lot, and it has its own reasons. In our studio, I can say we are minority. Me and Peyman, I think most of the studios are women graphic designers. They are very good. Actually, now the director of the studio is Sanaz, my colleague for 14 years now. And she's, me and Peyman, we prefer, and she's kind of handling the whole studio with 15 designers. The point is that the scene is changing. One of the most important reasons is that, like, when I was a student, I remember that it was the designer need needed to go to print houses in the midnight, in the very complicated districts of the city. So it was really difficult. It was one of the reasons. The other reasons was, okay, we are still living in a misogynic society. We needed to learn how we need to work to each other. So by little, it changed. When this Instagram page called Iranian Women of Graphic Design, they founded by my friends and colleagues in New York, it came up. They started to show the works of graphic design by women designers. And when we were working on this book of history of graphic design, especially after the movement of women life freedom, we really needed to go back again and check if we are missing some women designers. And we even found more and more women designers. And now when this movement happened, so many very good, not only graphic designers, but very good illustrators and motion graphic designers and animators, they came up super talented. It was like a shock for us. We were really surprised by this new wave of designers and illustration artists in Iran, women. And so it seems that it's not a support, it's our duty. And it's not a duty too. Maybe now I feel better. It's really a necessity to work with, for us, because now I can see that they are working much, much more concentrated. They are super talented. In studio for all these years, the number of the women designers in studio were more than men designers. Point was that, and always the result was, for me, it was really, really good and enjoying. I don't think that when I want to invite a new colleague to the studio, if it's a woman or it's a man, it only depends on if they are passionate or not. It's not about they are talented or not. It's much, much more about if they are passionate about creating, because you would learn so many things so fast in graphic design. It's fine. And the point is that I really find women designers much more passionate. So
they're very motivated and very
motivated and strong and concentrated and
I think
the point is that I am the bottleneck of a Studio Kargah, so I have to find a solution for myself. I'm the problem of a Studio Kargah. Yeah.
I'm sure you're not. Okay. So, I would you like to make like one last statement as a wrap up of this conversation? Is there something we should have talked about that I missed in our discussion? Do you want to collaborate on a graphic on an exhibition together?
No, let's really think of graphic design.
Not a
yeah, definitely. If I'm always really like to do collaborations. The point is that let's really think about a graphic design studio, or let's forget about even graphic design, a studio as a cultural activist. What we really need is to give this idea that design is culture.
Yeah.
And the point is that we can base our dialogue internationally, which is based on design and culture. What we need right now is a dialogue. We've been under a monologue from Western Europe and North America as a monologue to us. But let's try to communicate to each other, which is based on design and culture, and let's make it a dialogue.
Yeah.
And let's make our studios as a cultural activist. We can change so many things in the society. Definitely, we can do so many things. Being an individual is really difficult to change something, but as a teamwork, as collaboration, our power is enormous. Yeah.
I completely agree with you. And that's a really beautiful way to end this conversation, painfully end this conversation, but I'm sure we will meet again in person.
Yeah.
For a proper, more ideas and more things to discuss. I look forward to your next exhibition, your next project, definitely your publications. And I hope
Yeah.
to meet you either in Paris or in Hamburg or somewhere soon.
Sure. Yes, I'm looking for it.
Thank you so much for
Let's do it
this
soon.
wonderful, inspiring conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Huda, and thank you for everyone who's listening to this, and I hope to see you soon.